Welcome to the Portsmouth Athenaeum. I'm Katie Sternberger and I'm the Athenaeum's archivist. We're a nonprofit, member-supported library in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Incorporated in 1817, we have spent more than 200 years collecting library and archival resources related to local history. Today, I'd like to share how we collect and care for the archives. How are new collections acquired? There are a number of ways archival materials arrive at our repository. Primarily, new collections arrive by donation. This might happen when someone is renovating their home or cleaning out their attic and finds items related to Portsmouth. Athenaeum staff will work with the donor to determine if materials are of interest, and if we can accept the collection, we'll ask the donor to sign something called a deed of gift. This ensures the legal transfer of the records into the Athenaeum's custody, and we'll keep it on file along with any other documentation about the collection. Besides donations, we also accept transfers from other repositories that find they have Portsmouth-related material. We're always glad when materials can come home, so to speak. In addition, the Athenaeum has a budget with which we can purchase materials, for example, if we find something at auction. And one other method we sometimes use to acquire new materials is by scanning items and returning the originals to the donor. This way, we can still provide access to unique resources related to Portsmouth history in a digital format, while the donor doesn't have to part with items that might have sentimental value. What kinds of historical records do you collect? Archives and special collections here at the Athenaeum include a variety of materials. We have personal papers and family papers, so these are items collected by an individual or a family. They might contain correspondence, diaries, genealogy notes, financial records, and scrapbooks. We also have organizational records, which document local businesses or other organizations. These might contain account books or receipts or tax records. We hold the records of the Athenaeum itself, dating back to our founding. These are called institutional archives. Additional materials we collect include photographs, ephemera, architectural drawings, and rare books. We look at each potential acquisition on a case-by-case basis, but in general, new collections should help fulfill the Athenaeum's mission. So we're looking for unique materials that provide a broad understanding of the Piscataqua region of New Hampshire and Maine. It's also important to note what kinds of materials we cannot accept. Usually, we can only collect materials that we can care for properly, so taking into consideration space requirements or preservation needs. For example, we don't actively seek film because digitization requires a significant investment of time and money, yet we can't make it accessible until it's digitized. So we try to prioritize the records we know we can provide access to for research. Any materials that we are unable to accept or that duplicate materials we already have in the collection, we'll work with the donor to try to find another appropriate home for the material. How can I donate to the archives? If you have materials that you think might belong in the Athenaeum's archives, you're welcome to get in touch with us. We'll help you evaluate the materials, take an inventory, discuss any legal or ethical concerns such as copyright, identify any preservation or conservation needs, and figure out the best way to deliver the collection. Please don't drop off material without asking first. For record-keeping purposes, it's really important that we both sign that deed of gift that I mentioned earlier. We also like being able to talk with you and gather any contextual information you might have about the collection. In particular, we're interested in the collection's provenance, or who created it. Also, it's not necessary to organize materials before you donate them. We can help you with that too. One of the foundational principles of archives is maintaining what we call original order, so leaving materials the way you found them. Sometimes the creator of a collection organized the materials a particular way, and for both me as the archivist and for our potential researchers, that organization provides a lot of useful information, so we want to make sure we don't lose that. Donating materials to an archives should be a collaborative process between the donor and the archivist. What does processing a collection entail? Processing means arranging and describing a collection. Okay, but what does that really mean? Arranging a collection refers to the process of organizing the collection. So as the archivist, I'm using those principles of provenance and original order to figure out the best way to make sure the collection is usable for researchers. But sometimes collections don't have any original order. They're in complete disarray. And that's all right. Instead, I'll assess the materials and find some other way to organize them, such as chronologically. What I'm looking for is an organizational scheme that's productive for research. Now, describing a collection entails writing up the details about a collection and its contents. I'll assign the collection a title, list the creator, give the dates and record formats associated with the materials, say how many boxes or folders or items there are, and talk about what kinds of information are in the records. So that's why all the information gathering and legal stuff during the donation process is so important. It all adds up to this final product called the finding aid, which is how researchers find and access the collection. And in order to help them conduct their research, as the archivist, I like to try to give them as much context as possible. How is the archives different from the library? Archives are often found within libraries. The Athenaeum is one such example. Your public library might have an archives too. There are some key differences though. Archives contain unique, unpublished materials of enduring value. Libraries contain multiple copies of published materials which aren't necessarily kept permanently. Whereas a librarian catalogs each individual book on the shelf, an archivist will choose what level of cataloging a collection receives. Depending on the research value or the preservation needs of the collection, archivists generally avoid item-level work. There are hundreds of pages in each document box, and there are often many boxes in a collection. So there simply aren't enough hours in the day to analyze each item, much as we might like to. Instead, we'll talk about the collection as a whole and provide cues as to how a researcher might find the items of interest to them. So we'll list the folder titles, provide names and dates, and mention the topics discussed in the collection. Here at the Athenaeum, though, the power of the library and the archives combine. Our carefully curated collections cover the breadth and depth of our local history and fulfill your research needs. If the archives have sparked your interest, you can find more information on our website and search our online catalog at portsmouthathenaeum.org. The Research Library is open on Tuesdays through Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. You can also reach us by email at research@portsmouthathenaeum.org.